Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome. Today's topic is the 1922 Cleveland Indians AL MLB baseball season. Again, the Tribe was playing in the American League, the junior circuit of Major League Baseball, and home games in Cleveland were played at League Park, also known as Dunn Field at that time. In 1922, the Indians finished in fourth place with a record of 78 and 76, 2 games over 500. A winning percentage of .506 and 16 games out of first place. The first place team was the New York Yankees, who were 94 and 60, winning percentage of .610. Second place, the St. Louis Browns were right on their heels, 93 and 61, only a game out of first. Third place, the Detroit Tigers were 79 and 75. Fourth place, the Cleveland Indians, 78 and 76. Fifth place, the Chicago White Sox, 77 and 77. Sixth place, the Washington Senators, 69 and 85. Seventh place, the Philadelphia Athletics, 65 and 89. And in eighth and last place, the Boston Red Sox were 61 and 93. There was a new policy at League Park. The names of the players in the lineup were no longer on the scoreboard, only their uniform numbers. And the names and numbers, the corresponding numbers, were printed in 5-cent scorecards. And this was a ploy to get people to buy scorecards to try to figure out who the players were. In 1922, the attendance at League Park was 528,145, or an average of 6,815 fans per game. Now, the Tribe owner, Jim Dunn, after a long illness, died on June 9th, 1922, at age 55. So this was a real tremendous loss, terrible loss. The Tribe, the team was left to his widow, Edith, who owned the team until she sold it 5 years later, 1927. Meanwhile, Barney Barnard was in charge of operations. American League president Van Johnson, who actually played baseball at Oberlin College, had this to say about the death of Jim Dunn, that his death had, quote, taken from baseball one of the most popular club owners in the game because he played fair and square with everyone. Now, Jim Dunn was overweight. He was a cigar smoker and a faithful visitor to speakeasies, so he was a drinker. Baseball historian Scott H. Longer wrote, quote, Jim Dunn's death was a terrible blow to the Cleveland franchise that had flourished under his leadership. Yeah, this was a tremendous loss because he was really the guy that did as much as anyone to bring the Tribe the World Series title in 1920, and 2 short years later he was gone. Now, the one Tribe coach in 1922 again was Jack Mcallister, and he was with Cleveland from 1913 to 1927 as scout, coach, and manager. Jack Mcallister. The player manager, again in 1922, was the center fielder, who also managed, Tris Speaker, who batted .378. Wow, 48 doubles, 8 triples, 11 home runs, 71 RBIs, 8 stolen bases in 131 games. And Speaker was with Cleveland from 1916 to 1926. In 1922, he finished third in the American League in hitting, behind George Sisler, who hit .420, and Ty Cobb, who hit .401. Tris Speaker. Again, our tremendous catcher in 1922 was Steve O'Neill. O'Neill had a fine year. He batted .311, 27 doubles, 4 triples, 2 home runs, 65 RBIs, 2 stolen bases in 133 games. And O'Neill played for Cleveland from 1911 to 1923 and was the Tribe manager from 1935 to 1937. Steve O'Neill. The Tribe had a new first baseman in 1922, Stuffy McInnes, who batted .305 with 28 doubles, 7 triples, a home run, 78 RBIs, a stolen base in 142 games. McInnes was from Gloucester, Massachusetts. He died in Ipswich, Massachusetts in 1960 at age 69. For his career, he hit .307. Wow, 2,045 hits, 20 home runs, and 1,063 RBIs. He was as a manager, his record was 51 and 103, or a winning percentage of .331. McInnes played for the Philadelphia Athletics, Boston Red Sox, Cleveland Indians, Boston Braves, Pittsburgh Pirates, and Philadelphia Phillies from 1909 to 1927. Long, wonderful career. He was a manager with the Phillies in 1927. He won World Series titles in 1911 and 1913 for the Philadelphia Athletics, 1918 with the Boston Red Sox, and 1925 with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He got his nickname Stuffy. The story is, as a youngster, he had spectacular play. And somebody said, "That's the stuff, kid." So that's how he got his nickname. He was a solid defensive player. He set a record on May 31, between May 31, 1921 and June 2nd, 1922, with 1,700 fielding chances without an error over 163 games. And that record was a record which was eventually broken by Kevin Youkilis of the Red Sox. After he retired, he coached baseball at Norwich University and Harvard University. McInnes was traded to the Tribe from Boston for George Burns, Elmer Smith, and Joe Harris. Stuffy McInnes. Bill Wamsgans, again, was our tremendous second baseman. Wamsgans batted .262 with 22 doubles, 6 triples, 47 RBIs, 17 stolen bases in 142 games. And Wamsgans was with Cleveland from 1914 to 1923. Bill Wamsgans. Joe Sewell was our outstanding shortstop. Sewell batted .299, 28 doubles, 7 triples, 2 home runs, 83 RBIs, wonderful, 10 stolen bases in 153 games. And Sewell was with Cleveland from 1920 to 1930. Joe Sewell. Larry Gardner was the third baseman. Gardner batted .285 with 31 doubles, 3 triples, 2 home runs, 68 RBIs, 9 stolen bases in 137 games. And Gardner was with Cleveland from 1919 to 1924. In the outfield, we had Charlie Jameson in left, who batted .323. Really good. 29 doubles, 11 triples, 3 home runs, 57 RBIs, 15 stolen bases in 145 games. He also pitched a couple games, had no decisions, and an ERA of 3.18 in 5 2/3 innings pitched. And Jameson was with Cleveland from 1919 to 1932. Charlie Jameson. In right field, we had Smokey Joe Wood, who had a tremendous year. He hit .297, 33 doubles, 8 triples, 8 home runs, 92 RBIs, 5 stolen bases in 142 games. And Wood was with Cleveland from 1917 to 1922. This was the end of his MLB career. Very strange. He had an outstanding year and decided to retire. On September 24th, that was Joe's last MLB game. At League Park, he scored a run to help Cleveland win that game. He went from first to third on a single and scored when Yankee right fielder Babe Ruth bobbled the ball and threw to second base, and the Tribe won 4-3. Now he retired because he got a job offer to coach baseball at Yale. And Joe said this, quote, "When I went to Cleveland in 1917, our older son was a year old. I was there with the Indians for 6 years, and I probably could have played 4 or 5 years longer in the big leagues. But I used to come off a trip, and the babies, they didn't know who I was. That kind of worked on me a little. So I came to Yale and took this position where I could be home and with the family." He wanted the security of a regular long-term employment. His coaching style was fatherly and methodical. He was a fine coach. The New Haven, Connecticut newspaper in 1927 wrote, quote, "Since becoming a coach at Yale, Joe Wood has been a fine gentleman, a successful coach, and a wonderful influence on the young athletes over whom he has had supervision." He coached future MLB commissioner Fay Vincent at Yale in the 1930s. Vincent was a tremendous first baseman at Yale. At the 1930 Old Timers game at Braves Field in Boston, he appeared with Cy Young, home run Baker, Eddie Collins, Honus Wagner, and Ty Cobb. In 1933, the Yale baseball team went on an Asian tour and played baseball in Hawaii and Japan. Wood wrote this about Japan, quote, "They used human excrement for fertilizer over there, and you get out in the street and get behind them in an automobile, it was just murder. In the morning, they'd wake you up by coming down the streets in wooden shoes." everything was this bamboo stuff. I got a bunch of beautiful silk shirts, robes, handkerchiefs, and underwear, all monogrammed and delivered in an hour. He appeared at a 1939 Old Timers game at Fenway Park and hit a home run. In 1940, Joe's son, Joe Jr., was on the Yale baseball team, and his father was the coach, and Joe Jr. threw a no-hitter May 30th against Wesleyan. In 1942, Joe was fired by Yale as the baseball coach during World War II as, quote, a wartime economy move. Joe's record at Yale was 285, 230, and 1. He won 8 Big Three championships and the EIBL in 1932 and 1937. Joe said this, quote, I sure as hell did my best, the best that I know how. If that wasn't good enough, well, then it wasn't. His son Bob considered Tris Speaker to be a second father because they were so close, Smokey Joe Wood and Tris Speaker. Speaker and Wood came to the Red Sox spring training in the early 1950s, and they came across Ted Williams in a whirlpool, and Williams got out and asked Speaker and Wood questions about hitting. Joe Wood was at the 1956 Game 6 of the World Series and saw Don Larson throw a perfect game, the Yankees-Dodgers game. He was at the 1958 reunion in Shahola, Pennsylvania, visiting with Tris Speaker and Rocky Colavito, who was Wood's favorite player at the time, who was currently playing. Smokey Joe Wood played golf into his 80s. He got his first hole-in-one when he was nearly 60 years old, won a week later in a total of 4. Joe Wood said this, quote, my religion is to help anybody who needs my help, as a favor for anybody who wants a favor. Tris Speaker had been like a father figure for him. Hugh Fullerton wrote, quote, Smokey Joe Wood admired Tris Speaker above all things, and Spoke was a sort of father to the youngster who would do almost anything Speaker suggested. Smokey Joe Wood said this, quote, Tris Speaker and me, we'd do anything for one another. I'd have gone to hell for Tris, and he'd have gone to hell for me. He exchanged Christmas cards as an older fellow with Bill Wamsgans, Elmer Smith, Stan Kovaleski, George Ewell, George Burns. And there was a campaign to get Joe Wood in the Hall of Fame. There were 4,000 signatures were signed, including Rob Reiner, Billy Crystal, Susan Sarandon, Tim Robbins, and Carl Malden. He got a letter from George Bush Sr. in support, and also Tip O'Neill supported that. However, he was never inducted. As he grew older, he lived an orderly, neat lifestyle. The bills in his wallet were folded on the same side in the same direction. He was old school, strong-willed. Once a week, he would bathe in a creek near the family house as an older guy. He'd stand up when 8 ladies would enter the room and take off his hat in their presence. In 1978, at age 88, he had his first major health issue when he fell off a ladder, broke his clavicle, and punctured a lung. He developed pneumonia but recovered. His wife Laura died in 1979 at age 89. At Joe's 90th birthday in 1979, he had greetings from U.S. Presidents Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter, and also Baseball Commissioner Bowie Kuhn, along with Joe Sewell, Stan Kovaleski, Elmer Smith, and Luke Sewell. One-time Baseball Commissioner Bart Giamatti said, quote, called Wood, quote, the greatest pitcher Boston has ever known. Joe said he never worked as an adult. He said this, quote, I worked more when I was a kid than I did when I was a man. That's because baseball was never a chore. I had fun playing something that I'd have played for nothing if I could have afforded it. When he hurt his arm, that ended his pitching career in Boston, and he said this about that, quote, you have to laugh those things off, that's all. Some of the kids used to wait after the ball games outside after we had our showers and were dressed, or going out to get in the car to go home. They'd say, there goes Smokey Joe Wood. He's smokeless now. If I would have had a few more brains, I wouldn't have been throwing the ball all the time. Now, he had this to say about the Old West, where he actually had grown up part of his youth, and he said, quote, there are more cowboys now than they had then. Make-believe cowboys. Get them on a horse and they'd fall off. He admired, as an older guy, he admired the current players Juan Marichal, Jim Palmer, and Pete Rose and Willie Mays. In 1984 at Fenway Park, he threw out the first pitch of the Old Timers game. Smokey Joe Wood died in 1985 at the Soundview Convalescent Home in West Haven, Connecticut. Wood said this, quote, Rube Waddell liked to blow into his beer so he could study the expanding head on the brew. Eddie Cicotte considered himself a jokester, but his jokes weren't funny, and his smooth, slick style wasn't successful with women. The most effective way to pitch to Shoeless Joe Jackson was to duck. Ty Cobb had very few friends, but Ty was one of my best friends. Players called Babe Ruth, he mentioned that the players called Babe Ruth, quote, the Big Baboon. He had this to say about the 1919 Black Sox. Chick Gandil was the ringleader of that thing. He was always a louse. Everybody knew he was a louse. He had this to say about Tribe owner Jim Dunn. There was the brightest man who ever owned a ball club, Jim Dunn. He was a great man. Smokey Joe Wood appears in the 1989 movie Field of Dreams as one of the ghosts, along with Shoeless Joe Jackson, Mel Ott, and others who play in that Iowa cornfield, the baseball field built from a cornfield. In 2004, Bob Wood, Joe's son, threw out the first pitch before Game 4 of the ALCS, which was the start of the Red Sox comeback, start of an 8-game winning streak leading to the World Series title when they were down 0-3 in the ALCS. Gerald C. Wood, biographer of Smokey Joe, said, quote, Smokey Joe Wood's greatest legacy is not his physical skills. It is his loyalty and courage in the face of adversity. He played his first Major League Baseball game on August 24th, 1908. At the Centennial, the Red Sox invited 20 Wood family members on August 17th, 2008 to remember Smokey Joe Wood at Fenway Park. Smokey Joe Wood. Now on the bench we had Riggs Stevenson, who played some left field. Stevenson batted .339, 79 hits and 233 at-bats, 24 doubles, 5 triples, 2 home runs, 32 RBIs, 3 stolen bases in 86 games, and Stevenson was with Cleveland from 1921 to 1925. Riggs Stevenson. Joe Evans played some outfield. Evans batted .269 with 39 hits and 145 at-bats, 6 doubles, 2 triples, 22 RBIs, 11 stolen bases in 75 games. Evans was with Cleveland from 1915 to 1922, and he continued in the major leagues until 1925. Joe Evans. Luke Sewell was a spare catcher. Sewell batted .264, 23 hits and 87 at-bats, 5 doubles, 10 RBIs, a stolen base in 41 games. And Sewell was with Cleveland from 1921 to 1932, and then in 1939. Luke Sewell. Lou Gusto played some first base. Gusto batted .250 with 21 hits and 84 at-bats, 10 doubles, a triple, 9 RBIs in 35 games. And Gusto was with Cleveland from 1916 to 1917, and from 1921 to 1923. Lou Gusto. Jack Graney was a spare outfielder. Graney batted .155, 9 hits and 58 at-bats, scored 6 runs, 2 RBIs, walked 9 times, struck out 12 times in 37 games. Graney was with Cleveland starting in 1908 and then 1910 to 1922. This was the end of his MLB career. However, he returned to be the Cleveland Indians radio broadcaster from 1932 to 1953. Jack Graney. Pat Mcnulty played some outfield. Mcnulty batted .271 with 16 hits and 59 at-bats, scored 10 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, 5 RBIs in 22 games. McNulty was born in 1899 in Cleveland, Ohio. He died in 1963 at age 64. Played for the Cleveland Indians in 1922, and from 1924 to 1927. He was a starting right fielder in 1925. For his career, he batted .290 with 36 doubles, 9 triples, 6 home runs, 84 RBIs, 22 stolen bases, 238 hits in 308 games. Pat McNulty. Joe Connolly played some outfield. Connolly batted .244, 11 hits and 45 at-bats, scored 6 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, 6 RBIs in 12 games. Connolly was from San Francisco, California. He died in San Francisco in 1960 at age 65. A career average of .268 with 3 home runs and 32 RBIs. Connolly played for the New York Giants, Cleveland Indians, and Boston Red Sox between 1921 and 1924. They called him Coaster Joe, Joe Connolly. Homer Suma played some outfield. Suma batted .348, 16 hits and 46 at-bats, scored 9 runs, 3 doubles, 3 triples, a home run, 6 RBIs, a stolen base in 12 games. Suma was from Gentry, Missouri. He died in Los Angeles, California in 1966 at age 67. A career average of .302 with 18 home runs and 361 RBIs. Suma played for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Cleveland Indians, Philadelphia Athletics between 1920 and 1930. He won a World Series title in 1929 with the Philadelphia Athletics. On May 31st, 1927, he became the first player in MLB history to hit into the game-ending unassisted triple play. In the minor leagues, he played for the Norfolk Mary Janes, the Rochester Colts, and the Wichita Spudders. Homer Suma. Les Nunemaker was a spare catcher. Nunemaker batted .302 with 13 hits and 43 at-bats. He scored 8 runs, 2 doubles, 7 RBIs in 25 games. Nunemaker was with Cleveland from 1919 to 1922, and this was the end of his MLB career. Les Nunemaker. Ginger Shinault was a spare catcher. Shinault batted .133, 2 hits and 15 at-bats. He scored a run, had a double, struck out twice in 13 games. Shinault was with Cleveland from 1921 to 1922, and this was the end of his MLB career. Ginger Shinault. Joe Schott was an outfielder who did a little pitching. He batted 5 times, did not have a hit, scored a run in 5 games. His pitching record, he had no decisions and an ERA of 19.64. 2 games, 3 2/3 innings pitched, and 8 earned runs allowed. Schott was from Peckville, Pennsylvania. He died in Scranton, Pennsylvania in 1970 at age 70. His pitching record was 99 and 109 with an ERA of 4.15 and 512 strikeouts. Schott played for the Cleveland Indians, Brooklyn Robins, Brooklyn Dodgers, and Cincinnati Reds between 1922 and 1934. He went to Juniata College and Mansfield University of Pennsylvania. His debut was in September of 1922. His first pitch was to Babe Ruth. In the 8th inning, the Tribe was up by 1 run and the bases were loaded with 2 outs. And Schott struck out Babe Ruth on 4 pitches. What a thrill. In the next inning, he faced Bob Musil, who, quote, swung so hard on Schott's first offering that he whirled completely around and fell to the ground. 1927, Babe Ruth had a record 60 home runs. His 30th, 40th, and 52nd were all off Schott. And he also struck out Babe Ruth more than 30 times in his career. In 1924, he won 24 games with Cleveland. Joe Schott. Jack Hammond played some second base. Hammond batted .250 with 1 hit and 4 at-bats. He scored a run in 1 game. Hammond was with Cleveland in 1915 and 1922, and this was the end of his MLB career. Jack Hammond. Bill Doran played some third base. Doran batted .500, 1 hit and 2 at-bats. He walked once in 3 games. Doran was born in 1898 in San Francisco, California. He died in 1978 at age 79. His MLB career was just with Cleveland in 1922, and he went to St. Mary's College of California. Bill Doran. Joe Rabbit was an outfielder. He batted .333 with 1 hit and 3 at-bats, scored a run in 2 games. Rabbit was born in 1900 in Frontenac, Kansas, and he died in 1969 at age 69, and his MLB career was just with Cleveland in 1922. Joe Rabbit. Ike Cadott played some third base. He batted twice, did not have a hit, struck out once in 4 games. Cadott was from Georgetown, Oklahoma. He died in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma in 1999 at age 99. His MLB career was just with the Cleveland Indians in 1922. They called him Chief. At the time of his death, he was the oldest living former MLB player, Ike Cadott. Chick Sorrells played some shortstop, batted once, did not have a hit in 2 games. Sorrells was from Stringtown, Oklahoma. He died in Terrell, Texas in 1983 at age 86, and his MLB career was just with the Cleveland Indians in 1922. Chick Sorrells. Ook Clanton played some first base. Clanton batted once, did not have a hit. He struck out in 1 game. Clanton was from Powell, Missouri. He died in Antlers, Oklahoma in 1960 at age 62. His MLB career was just with the Cleveland Indians in 1922. They called him Cat, and he died in an automobile accident. Ook Clanton. Now, the pitching staff was our ace pitcher in 1922 was George Ewell. As a hitter, Ewell batted .266 with 29 hits and 109 at-bats, scored 21 runs, 8 doubles, 2 triples, 14 RBIs, a stolen base in 56 games. Ewell's pitching record was 22-16 with an ERA of 4.07. 50 games, 40 starts, 23 complete games, 5 shutouts, and 3 saves. But Ewell pitched for Cleveland from 1919 to 1928 and 1936. They called him Ukulele Ewell, and he's buried at Lakewood Cemetery in Rocky River, Ohio. George Ewell. Stan Kovaleski was second in the rotation. Kovaleski batted .101 with 10 hits and 99 at-bats. He scored 4 runs, had a double, a triple, 7 RBIs, walked 6 times, struck out 21 times in 35 games. Kovaleski's pitching record was 17-14 with an ERA of 3.32. 35 games, 33 starts, 21 complete games, 3 shutouts, and 2 saves. And Kovaleski was with Cleveland from 1916 to 1924. Stan Kovaleski. Guy Morton was third in the rotation. Morton batted .191 with 13 hits and 68 at-bats. He scored 4 runs, had a double, a triple, 3 RBIs in 38 games. Morton's pitching record was 14-9. With an ERA of 4.00, 38 games, 23 starts, 13 complete games, 3 shutouts, and a save. And Morton was with Cleveland from 1914 to 1924. Guy Morton. Jim Bagby was another pitcher. Bagby batted .262 with 11 hits and 44 at-bats. He scored 4 runs, 6 doubles, 6 RBIs in 25 games. Bagby's pitching record was 4-5 with an ERA of 6.32. 25 games, 10 starts, 4 complete games, and a save. And Bagby was with Cleveland from 1916 to 1922. So this was the end of his time in Cleveland. Jim Bagby. Duster Mayles was another pitcher. Mayles batted .161 with 5 hits and 31 at-bats, 2 runs, scored 2 runs, had a double, a triple, an RBI, walked twice, struck out 14 times in 26 games. Mayles' pitching record was 4-7. With an ERA of 5.28, 26 games, 13 starts, 4 complete games, and a shutout. Mayles was with Cleveland from 1920 to 1922, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. However, he continued in the major leagues until 1926. Duster Mayles. Dan Boone was another pitcher. Boone batted .192 with 5 hits and 26 at-bats. He had a double, an RBI in 11 games. Boone's pitching record was 4-6 with an ERA of 4.06. 11 games, 10 starts, 4 complete games, and 2 shutouts. Boone was from Samantha, Alabama. He died in Tuscaloosa, Alabama in 1968 at age 73. His career record was 8-13 with an ERA of 5.10 and 25 strikeouts. Boone pitched for the Philadelphia Athletics, Detroit Tigers, and Cleveland Indians between 1922 and 1923. He also played football for the Alabama Crimson Tide and was an end. Dan Boone. Jim Joe Edwards was another pitcher. Edwards batted .087 with 2 hits and 23 at-bats. He struck out 4 times in 25 games. His pitching record was 3-8 with an ERA of 4.47. 25 games, 7 starts, and 92 2/3 innings pitched. Edwards was from Banner, Mississippi. He died in Sarepta, Mississippi in 1965 at age 70. A career record of 26-37 with an ERA of 4.37 and 211 strikeouts. Edwards pitched for the Cleveland Indians, Chicago White Sox, and Cincinnati Reds between 1922 and 1928. He played baseball at Mississippi College. After he retired, he became a teacher and football coach in Pontotoc, Mississippi. He died in a car accident, and he played in the minor leagues for the Knoxville Smokies, the Memphis Chickasaws, the Oakland Oaks, and the Birmingham Barons. Jim Joe Edwards. Jim Lindsay was another pitcher. Lindsay batted .167 with 4 hits and 24 at-bats. He scored a run, had a triple, and RBI in 29 games. Lindsay's pitching record was 4-5 with an ERA of 6.02, 29 games, 5 starts, and a save. Lindsay was from Greensburg, Louisiana. He died in Jackson, Louisiana in 1963 at age 65. a career record of 21-20 with an ERA of 4.70 and 175 strikeouts. Lindsay pitched for the Cleveland Indians, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and Brooklyn Dodgers between 1922 and 1937. He won a World Series title in 1931 with the St. Louis Cardinals. He was the manager of the Dayton Ducks in the minor leagues in 1938, and he played in the minor leagues for the Columbus Redbirds, the Atlanta Crackers, and the Little Rock Travelers. Jim Lindsay. George Wynn was another pitcher. Wynn batted .333, 3 hits and 9 at-bats. He scored 3 runs, had an RBI and 2 walks in 8 games. His pitching record was 1-2, with an ERA of 4.54, 8 games, 3 starts, and 1 complete game. Wynn was from Perry, Georgia. He died in Roberta, Georgia in 1969 at age 72. A career record of 1-2 with an ERA of 4.69 and 7 strikeouts. Wynn pitched for the Boston Red Sox and Cleveland Indians between 1919 and 1923. He went to Mercer University. They called him Breezy or Lefty. In the minor leagues, he played for the Oakland Oaks, Milwaukee Brewers, and Spartanburg Spartans. George Wynn. Alan Sotharon was another pitcher. Sotharon batted .444, 4 hits and 9 at-bats, a double, 2 RBIs in 6 games. Sotharon's pitching record was 1-3, with an ERA of 6.39, 6 games, 4 starts, and 2 complete games. Sotharon pitched for Cleveland from 1921 to 1922, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. He continued in the major leagues until 1926 and managed the St. Louis Browns in 1933. Alan Sotharon. Dave Keefe was another pitcher. Keefe batted .333 with 2 hits and 6 at-bats. He scored a run, had an RBI in 18 games. As a pitcher, he had no decisions and an ERA of 6.19, 18 games, 1 start, and 36 1/3 innings pitched. Keefe was from Williston, Vermont. He died in Kansas City, Missouri in 1978 at age 81. A career record of 9-17 with an ERA of 4.15 and 126 strikeouts. Keefe pitched for the Philadelphia Athletics and Cleveland Indians between 1917 and 1922. In the minor leagues, he played for the Reading Coal Barons, the Providence Grays, Norfolk Tars, and he also coached the Philadelphia A's and was the traveling secretary for the Kansas City A's. Dave Keefe. Dewey Mativier was another pitcher. Mativier batted .167 with 1 hit and 6 at-bats, scored a run, stole a base, had a walk in 2 games. Mativier's pitching record was 2-0 with an ERA of 4.50, 2 games, both starts, and both complete games. Mativier was born in 1898 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He died in 1947 at age 48. Pitched for the Cleveland Indians from 1922 to 1924 and had a career record of 7-7 with an ERA of 5.74 and 24 strikeouts. Dewey Mativier. Sherry Smith was another pitcher. Smith batted .333, 2 hits and 6 at-bats. He had an RBI, struck out twice in 2 games. Smith's pitching record was 1-0 with an ERA of 3.45, 2 games, both starts, and a complete game. Smith was from Monticello, Georgia. He died in Reidsville, Georgia in 1949 at age 58. A career record of 114 and 118 with an ERA of 3.32 and 428 strikeouts. Smith pitched for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Brooklyn Robins, and Cleveland Indians between 1911 and 1927. In Game 2 of the 1916 World Series, pitching for Brooklyn, he dueled Babe Ruth with the Red Sox, but lost that game 2-1 in 14 innings. In the 1920 World Series, he won Game 3 against Cleveland. In the 1925, he led the American League in complete games with 22. Sherry Smith. He also led the league in walks and hits allowed. In the minor leagues, he played for the Jacksonville Jays, Springfield Reapers, and Louisville Colonels. Sherry Smith. Phil Bedgood was another pitcher. Bedgood batted twice, did not have a hit, struck out once in 1 game. His pitching record was 1-0 with an ERA of 4.00, 1 game, which was a start and a complete game. Bedgood was from Harrison, Georgia. He died in Fort Pierce, Florida in 1927 at age 29. A career record of 1-2 with an ERA of 4.88 and 12 strikeouts. Bedgood pitched for the Cleveland Indians from 1922 to 1923. He died when his appendix burst while being treated for a strained muscle in his side. Phil Bedgood. John Middleton was another pitcher. Middleton batted .333 with 1 hit and 3 at-bats in 2 games. His pitching record was 0-1 with an ERA of 7.36, 2 games, 1 start, and 7 1/3 innings pitched. Middleton was from Mount Calm, Texas. He died in Amarillo, Texas in 1986 at age 86. His MLB career was just with Cleveland in 1922, and his full name was John Wayne Middleton. John Middleton. Tex Jeans was another pitcher. He batted once, did not have a hit, walked once in 1 game. As a pitcher, he had no decisions and an ERA and no ERA in 1 game. And he was with Cleveland from 1921 to 1922. He pitched in the major leagues until 1927. Tex Jeans. Logan Drake was another pitcher. Drake batted once, did not have a hit. He struck out in 1 game. He had no decisions as a pitcher, an ERA of 3.00, 1 game and 3 innings pitched, 1 earned run allowed. Drake was from Spartanburg, South Carolina. He died in Columbia, South Carolina in 1940 at age 40. A career record of 0-1 with an ERA of 7.71 and 11 strikeouts. Drake pitched for the Cleveland Indians from 1922 to 1924. The minor leagues, he played for the Chattanooga Lookouts, the Wichita Falls Spudders, the Albany Nuts, and the Elmira Colonels. Logan Drake. George Edmondson was another pitcher. He did not bat in 2 games, had no decisions as a pitcher, and an ERA of 9.00, 2 games, 1 start, and 2 innings pitched. He was born in 1896 in Waxahachie, Texas. He died in 1973 at age 77. Edmondson pitched for the Cleveland Indians from 1922 to 1924. For his career, he had no decisions and an ERA of 9.62, 14 innings pitched, and 3 strikeouts. George Edmondson. Nellie Pott was another pitcher. He did not bat in 2 games, had no decisions, and an ERA of 31.50 in 2 games and 2 innings pitched and 7 earned runs allowed. Pott was born in 1899 in Cincinnati, Ohio. He died in 1963 at age 64, and his MLB career was just with Cleveland in 1922. Nellie Pott. Doc Heyman was another pitcher. He did not bat in 1 game, and he had no decisions and an ERA of infinity. He's a co-holder of that record. He did not have any innings pitched. In other words, he did not record any outs, and he allowed 6 earned runs, giving him an ERA of infinity. Heyman was from New Ulm, Minnesota. He died in Bayside, Wisconsin in 1973 at age 72. His MLB career was just with the Cleveland Indians in 1922. As a pitcher, he faced 7 batters and did not record an out, and that is a record. Doc Heyman. And finally, Ted Odenwald. Did not bat in 1 game, had no decisions, and an ERA of 40.50, 1 game, 1 1/3 innings pitched, and 6 earned runs allowed. Odenwald pitched for Cleveland from 1921 to 1922, and this was the end of his MLB career. Now, after the regular season, the World Series was played. It was a rematch of the American League champions, New York Yankees, who were swept by 4 games to nothing by the National League champions, New York Giants, and all of the games were played at the Polo Grounds, and both teams were playing their games there. This is before Yankee Stadium had been built. So for 2 years in a row, it was the Giants, New York Giants, defeated the New York Yankees in the World Series. The Yankees had manager Miller Huggins, Frank Baker, Babe Ruth, and Waite Hoyt. The Giants had manager John McGraw, Frankie Fritsch, and Casey Stengel. Now, at this time, they were starting to call it the World Series, not the World's Series, which had been the previous name, Worlds, WORLD''S, which is kind of an awkward name. So it went from the World Series to the World Series in 1922. So that's the story of the 1922 Cleveland Indians. They had a good year. Not great, but a good year. God bless the fellows who played for the Indians in 1922 and everyone else associated with the team, including the fans, especially the Civil War veterans, the Spanish-American War veterans, and the First World War veterans, captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, fans of the Free Stamp statue and the Fountain of Eternal Life, Severance Hall stalwarts, First Energy Stadium friends, Progressive Field pals, Quicken Loans Arena enthusiasts, Euclid Avenue Electricity, Tribe, Browns, Cavs, Monsters, and Gladiators rule. Cleveland, City of Champions. Cleveland is the best location in the nation on the north coast of America. New York is the Big Apple. Cleveland is a plum. Before you know it, it'll be opening day 2019. Go Tribe. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.